Imagine waking up tomorrow and everything in your wallet is worth nothing. Not because you spent it, not because you lost it, but because your government overnight let it collapse. This isn't a dystopian movie. This happened. And the lessons? They're closer to home than you think. In 2012, $1 bought about 12,000 Iranian rials. By 2023, that same dollar bought over 500,000. That's not inflation, that's annihilation. A woman in Tehran, a mother in her 50s, held up old family photos and said, "My daughter's university savings. I worked 15 years for that money. In 1 year, it could barely pay for 2 months of rent." Medicines disappeared. Imported goods tripled in price. A family that once took vacations was now skipping meals, not because they were poor, but because the money they had earned was being quietly stolen by a collapsing currency. So why did it happen? Iran's economy runs on oil. When the US reimposed sanctions in 2018, oil exports were cut off almost entirely. Revenue collapsed. But the government still had to pay soldiers, teachers, hospitals. So they did what cornered governments always do. They printed more money. More money chasing fewer goods is the oldest economic disaster in history, and it plays out the same way every single time. Now, here's what most Americans don't realize. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency. It's the reason America can run trillions in debt and still borrow cheaply. But that privilege isn't permanent. It's trust. And trust can evaporate as fast as it was built. Every economist warning about US debt levels is essentially warning about the same chain reaction that started in Tehran and ended with families choosing between bread and medicine. When a currency dies, people don't just give up. They find alternatives. In Iran, gold became currency. US dollars became the real savings account. Crypto surged. Iran became one of the world's top Bitcoin mining countries, not out of ideology, but desperation. And here's the cruelest part. Currency collapse doesn't hurt everyone equally. The wealthy converted assets to gold and foreign currency before the crash. The middle class, teachers, nurses, engineers, watched a lifetime of savings evaporate. The poor simply fell off the edge. Currency collapse is a tax on people who trust their government, and the ones who trust the most are always the ones who lose the most. Americans got a small taste of this in 2021 and 2022. Inflation hit 9%. Groceries, gas, rent, everything surged. People were furious. Now imagine that, but for 20 years and at 40% per year, with no end in sight. That's Iran. That could be any country that loses control of its currency. The United States is not Iran. The dollar is backed by the world's largest military, the deepest financial markets, and decades of global trust. But trust, as Iran's story shows, can be destroyed faster than it was built. De-dollarization, BRICS nations building alternative payment systems, China quietly buying gold. These aren't conspiracy theories. They are documented policy shifts happening right now. One economic historian put it this way: no reserve currency lasts forever. The British pound, the Dutch guilder, every empire that overextended, overborrowed, and overprinted eventually faced a reckoning. The question isn't if, it's when and how bad. Iran's collapse was accelerated by sanctions. America's risk is self-inflicted, driven by debt, political gridlock, and a belief that the dollar's dominance is somehow a law of nature. It is not. The Iranian family who lost their savings didn't see it coming. They trusted the institutions. They worked hard. They saved. They did everything right.
So what would you do if your money became worthless overnight? Because the people in Tehran, they didn't get to answer that question before it was already too late.